What's happening? How's everybody doing? Making this video, show everybody, document what's happening here today. We are putting this new engine into this 2015 Nissan Sentra. As you can see, we got the old engine out. We got all the harness and all the electrical out of the way. We inspected all those plugs, make sure they're all good, there's no kinks in the wires. We cleaned the lower subframe, front frame, side pillars, firewall. This is a white car, so you know it gets dirty. And so we cleaned all this. My granddad said if you're gonna work on it, make it look like you worked on it, right? So we got all that cleaned up. Got the AC compressor out of the way. Got the condenser out of the way. Cleaned everything up there with some, we used brake parts cleaner. It is the safest thing to clean with. You can spray it on everything, even electrical, and you don't have to worry about it damaging anything electrical like engine degreaser would. Went ahead and cleaned the transmission. This transmission was dirty. One thing that I noticed is this transmission has been replaced before. When you buy stuff from the junkyard, they normally mark it. They write with these little yellow markers. The factory Nissan don't do that. That's a junkyard thing. And so if you see here, I'm going to show you. Those are the numbers on that transmission. B5CO33214. X4318. So this is the transmission, MD model, whatever that means. We've cleaned it up real nice. Brake cleaner, again, like I said, it's the only thing I trust to clean. We cleaned the whole transmission up like that with the brake cleaner. That way it matches the new engine. The hardest part of dropping this engine in is getting these bolts on the engine exhaust, when you got it attached to the exhaust, to line up with the bolt holes on the back of the catalytic converter there. And you obviously don't want to crush your compressor or any other wiring or anything like that, so you want to be believe it or not, for a 4-cylinder, it's a tight squeeze to get it in. I'm going to show you guys the new engine. Has its serial numbers also. HLMLL. And see if we can focus on that. MRA81503031H. Okay, so we got this all cleaned up. I'll show you the numbers on this engine. This is the engine that came out of it. This engine got a GGKLL up top. And then we got a different serial number on this one here. And that one is MRA8554062. That's the engine that came out of it. And you can see here what the deal was with this engine. Oh man, look at that gunk in there. Look at that sludge and that gunk in there. I had picked this out of there This is how much sludge and gunk was in there. Let me dig some more of it out. Look at that. Horrible, right? Horrible, horrible. And so the guy bought this car. It's a 2015. It's not really an old car. And when you pull the dipstick and you look at the oil, which is what most people do, you say, well, this looks clean, you know. This doesn't look dirty, right? This looks like clean oil. So there's no sludge in the oil dipstick. And this will come with this filler neck bolted, 2 little bolts right there, right? And so all he needed to do is bring somebody with him, unscrew those 2 bolts, and he would have been able to see the real condition of this engine. This engine was blowing smoke out the exhaust because it was sludged up, it was caked up. They never changed the oil on it. That's what blew this engine. People say, oh, these engines are bad, they're crap. No, take care of them. Put good oil in them. Change the oil on time. Keep an eye on your coolant. Take care of your motor, you know. This motor wasn't even leaking from the rear end, the rear main seal. I mean, really, I could de-sludge this motor. I could de-sludge it, like get all the sludge out. And hold on a second, where's my... Oh, you can't see them there, it's too dark. Alright, well, I could de-sludge this motor and clean it out. I'd have to take it apart and really clean it all up, but send the head off to get cleaned and all that, but it's too much work. These engines ain't that expensive. We got this one with a 2-year warranty, 36,000 miles. A 2-year warranty is solid. You can't argue against it. So I'll show you what the inside of this one looks like. Look how clean that is in there. No sludge at all. Nice and clean with no sludge. And if you look over here in the intake port, look how clean that is in there. No carbon, no sludge in the intake port. And then if you come over here and you look, this is the intake that it came with from the junkyard. And they mark them. And that's the mark, it's upside down, there you go. N902176 is the mark. They numbered it from Green Star Auto Salvage. This is your throttle body. Let me show you this intake. It's a little dusty, but we'll clean it. And this is the intake we're going to use, the intake that came with that motor. Look how clean it is in there. This is black plastic, y'all. You don't see no sludge in there, nice and clean. Look how clean this thing is. Super clean. And so we'll replace this gasket. Put a new gasket. Put a new throttle body gasket. Use the clean intake. We'll install that once the motor is installed in the car. Over here, I want to show you guys how bad the original intake that was in the motor that came out was. Look at the sludge in that. Let me show you this over here. How bad that was. And that's how sludged up this was. If you look at the throttle body, spitting oil out. So yeah, this thing was pretty sludged up. We're not going to use this intake, it's too dirty. The intake that came with the new motor will go on the new motor. We'll take obviously the alternator off. It's getting a new thermostat. It's getting it's got a rear main seal. It's the whole motor's getting resealed. A lot of the hoses that are good obviously get cleaned and reused. The transmission mount was good. We'll reuse that. The whole entire engine bay, again, like I said, has been cleaned. We're gonna go ahead and get new brake pads on this thing. As you can see, it didn't have much left. It was running thin on both sides, so we'll go ahead and knock that out. Your tie rod ends look good. Your ball joints look good. We checked the bearings and all that. Everything looks good on that side of it. Show you guys some of the parts we got here. So we went and spent some money at O'Reilly's. We got some PV Blast for the bolts. We got some Seafoam high mileage. Clean the gas tank. Clean the inside of the motor as it runs through it. Wix air filters. I need to go pick up the cabin air filter. We got a serpentine belt. Some thread lock, make sure the bolts don't come off on us. Like I said, a new thermostat. You see this little guy right here? I usually snip that off and leave that hole and just clear it out to where coolant can just flow through there easy. Why? We live in Florida, y'all. Sunshine State. It gets super hot down here. Just allows a little bit of coolant to flow through there with no restriction. Help keep that pressure a little down in the cooling system. It doesn't affect gas mileage or anything. It's not like cutting the thermostat and just running no thermostat. I don't recommend that, but snipping this little guy off, especially in the southern states where it's hot, I've noticed makes a big improvement. We're gonna go ahead and do the PCV valve. Show you guys this thing on the motor. It goes right there. It's plastic. Be careful. You don't need to tighten it down too hard. You see how clean this motor is inside? I showed y'all how gunked up this motor is. Positive crank ventilation valve. PCV valve, y'all. Cheap item. Makes a big difference in helping relieve a lot of that. Now, this wasn't done by the PCV valve. This was done by being straight assholes and just not changing the oil on the car, not caring. Sludged it up. But PCV valves do help release a lot of that positive crank flow pressure. So a PCV valve, basic maintenance, change your oil, change your filters, and you don't have to worry about replacing an engine on your 2015. It's ridiculous. So we're gonna put that PCV valve back in there. There's your belt. Obviously, here's your intake gasket set, throttle body gasket set from Felpro. There's your brake pads. We got a Wix XP oil filter on this 2015 1.8. It's 51358 XP. I cut these oil filters open when I see them come in under extreme service, and I haven't seen anybody make a better filter internally than Wix does. Wix makes a really stout filter, really good quality. I'm using the Mobile One. See if y'all can see that there. 0W20 full synthetic. I don't buy into that advanced fuel economy crap. I focus more on the weight. So full synthetic, and it's a 0W20. That's really all that matters to me. Now the coolant, we're staying with the blue coolant. They use this on a lot of Asian vehicles, Hyundai, Nissan, Subaru. Don't want to put any green coolant in here. I don't like mixing coolants like that. And then your CVT transmission fluid. For the transmission, we got 5 of those. Missing the cabin air filter is ordered. Got to go back and get it. Grabbed everything from O'Reilly's. $428.75 from O'Reilly's. So we got his receipt there. This guy is very good about keeping records on this car. Like I said, he keeps everything organized here. I made a video before for those of you that are following along. This is the Equifax car report on the motor that's going in, with the mileage on it, 36. And so we'll be keeping receipts of everything. The engine that we bought with the 2-year warranty from Green Star. There's your receipt for that. So we'll be keeping record of everything on paper also, not just on video and picture. So yeah, all new gaskets, belts, fluids, filters, not using the old intake, engine bay, super clean, ready to go. Nothing left to do here, but go ahead and install this. Lift it up, boop, 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 and drop it in. Boop, boop, boop. I'm waiting for a friend of mine to come to give me a hand, because it's hard to like pump and drop it in and everything's tight, and you want somebody to give you a hand just to make sure you don't damage anything while you're lowering it in place. Once it's lowered in place, he'll skedaddle and I'll finish the rest by myself. Out with the old engine, in with the new engine. I'll make another video once it's installed, bolted in, and getting new parts installed and ready to go. You can see it's plugged up. We're gonna do the thermostat and everything on it once it's installed. We'll do the PCV valve, we'll do the intake gaskets, we'll do the transmission service, we'll do all that stuff. We'll put the new belt on it, we'll do all that stuff once it's installed. Just want to get it dropped in right now. I wanted to pull the intake manifold off and make sure. We're going to do the spark plugs, we're going to do all that once it's installed. As far as spark plugs, I don't recall showing you guys those. Where are they? They're in here somewhere. Here they go. These are NGK laser iridium premium plugs. There's your part number. Boom, 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 boom. Part number 9029, laser iridiums ×4. These are the plugs you want to use in this car. You don't want to use any other plugs in this car. This car has those 9/16 skinny little spark plugs, and they're not the normal 5/8, and you want to go with a high quality spark plug in here. So definitely didn't want to leave that out of the video. These are the rear main seals. Last thing I'll show y'all. Here's your rear main seal part number, which is the BS40714. And you can see this is one from one of the motors and one from the other one. So there's 2 motors, the one that came from the junkyard and then the one that was in the car. So I removed the rear main seal from the one that came out of the car and removed the rear main seal from the one that we bought from the junkyard, and went ahead and installed a brand new rear main seal that was in this packet, BS40714, and went ahead and installed that on the back of the motor before that transmission was installed. Now the rear main seal that was on that motor was dry and it wasn't leaking, but just to be safe, not to be a cheap ass, why not put a new one on there? Just be 100% sure that you know you did it and you don't have to worry about it. The rear main seal, for those of y'all that don't know, will sit in the back here. As you can see, I've already removed this one, and it's one of the 2 main high pressure seals. You have your This is the back of your crank. So you have high pressure coming out of the back of the crank, oil seal, and then you have your other high pressure seal that would be the one behind that big crank pulley. And that one's not a big deal to replace later on. The one behind the crank pulley, pretty easy to replace. This one again wasn't leaking, so we're not gonna mess with it. And it can be easily replaced later by getting to it from the side of the engine here, if needed to be later down the road. But the transmission sits on the opposite side. This is a pretty big transmission. It's like heavier than the engine, the size of the engine. And then if you needed to replace that rear main seal later, you would have to remove the transmission, completely remove it, remove the flex plate torque converter to have access to that rear main seal later on. So it just makes sense to be smart and replace them now. They're like not that expensive. I can tell you the exact price on this receipt that I just put away. For those of you that want to know or want to complain about how much you're going to spend on a rear main seal. And get the iPhone. There we go. BS 40714 rear main seal. 1 year warranty. List for $32. We got it for $16.22. So you're talking about $16.22 to have a little bit of peace of mind now and not have to worry about paying the labor later to separate this transmission from that motor, just to be able to have access to that rear main seal when it does leak later. So it's just about a little bit of preventative measures. It's not because it was leaking, it's just to kind of dot the I's and cross the T's. Go ahead and make sure you replace that rear main seal. Even if it looks good, don't take any chances. Anyways, don't want to make the video any longer than it needs to be. Clean car, a lot of new parts going in it. 2015 Nissan Sentra. Looking forward to having all this plugged back up and seeing that new engine in the hole, and get this back to this guy's driveway with no issues at all whatsoever. Anyways, thanks for watching, y'all. God bless. See you on the next video.